So what is happening in Jewish mysticism, and how from those writings Lilith is going through all the other cultures? There were probably some stories about characters such as Lilith all throughout the Mediterranean Sea. But after the Jews are being exiled to Babylon and they come back, they bring a lot of stories, and they probably bring the story of Lilith with them. A story which is already being incarnated for thousands of years in Mesopotamia, and now they bring this figure of Lilith. In the Bible, she is mentioned once, and there it is not obvious if they're talking about the character or about some kind of form of a screech owl, the bird that will later become associated with her. In very early Jewish writings, and also in the scrolls of Qumran, you can find some spells or ideas of what Lilith is and how to fight her off. But the story that will define her as a symbol of a strong, powerful woman who's not willing to obey rules, we only meet in a book called Ben Sira, which is being dated 2 centuries after that. I saw researchers offering to place it between the 4th and the 10th century, sometimes the 7th. But Judaism and Christianity are already practicing monotheism, and Lilith is becoming associated with the story of creation in Genesis. When the Bible was created, the people who wrote it, and I'm talking about the Old Testament, they wanted people from a lot of different groups to find their place in the story of Genesis. So they took a lot of creation myth, and sometimes you actually see that you have more than one story in many of the chapters of the Bible. In the creation myth of Adam and Eve, or Adam and the woman, the first man and the first woman, you have 2 stories. In one of them, it is said that the man and the woman, the male and the female, are being created equally from matter, whatever this matter is. And not long after that, you suddenly see the story that the woman is being created from the rib, from the side of Adam, of the man. This is Eve. We do have a lot of different creation myths in mythologies all around. For example, we know the story of man and woman, male and female, being created with their connected in their backs, and then the gods are separating them, and until today everyone is looking for their other half. This is where it's coming from. It's very romantic. We do know of goddesses being created from different body parts of gods. Enki, the sky god in Mesopotamian mythology, has a daughter, Ninti. Ninti is being born from his rib, from his side, just like Adam and Eve. We do know of Athena, which is just exploding out of Zeus's head when she's grown, and she already has weapons and armor. So here we also find 2 echoes of all of these mythological stories, but it makes no sense. So what people are trying to tell is, before Eve, Adam had a different wife, the first woman. This first woman must have been Lilith. And what they say is that another woman was created with Adam in the same way that he was created, maybe from dirt, from the earth, from the matter. And there is one explanation that when he saw her creation, he was disgusted, and later on he couldn't refer to her as an attractive woman. But the other version that becomes very popular is that Lilith demanded to be equal. She didn't understand why she needs to be only second to Adam, and whenever they were intimate, she wanted to be on top, just like him. They start to fight, and then Lilith speaks the name of God. They start to fight, and then Lilith speaks the name of God. She leaps from the ground in the paradise, in Garden of Eden, and she flies elsewhere. She's leaving the garden. She ended up by the shores of the Red Sea, the Sinai Desert. And there she meets a lot of demons and demonesses that are very, very free-spirited, and they definitely do not follow the rules. She finds her place among those demons, and she's very happy. But Adam in the garden is telling God, listen, this woman that you created For me, obviously, she ran away from me. I want her back. And then God is sending 3 messengers to Lilith. They run after her, they find her in the shores of the Red Sea, and they demand her to come back. She says no. Again, a lot of different stories why she says no, but in the bottom line she says no, she's not interested in going back. They have this argument, come up with a very, very delicate agreement of what are her limits when it comes to the human world and what are their limits when it comes to her, and they separate. And from here on, we have a lot of stories in Jewish mysticism about Lilith. I will bring only the examples of a few. Some say that Cain and Abel in the Garden of Eden fought because they were both in love with Lilith. Some say that from the time that Lilith and Adam were together, Cain was born. There are depictions of her as an owl and a black cat, obviously, and sometimes even a goose. She is considered to be one of the 4 mothers of the demons, along with Agrat, Machalat, and Naamah, and they meet on a very dark mountain called Mount Mishpat. And sometimes whatever it is they're doing there, no one knows, and if you probably went there, you didn't come back to tell anyone, but maybe they have some kind of a witches council? No one knows. Sometimes maybe they talk about what they want to do in the world, and sometimes they also fight each other. And if you remember, they have armies such as Agrat, that she has many soldiers following her, and Lilith is the commander of a lot of battalions, thousands of them, of creatures of darkness. And when they get ready to fight, they call out and they shout so loud that you can hear their voice on earth. She is also someone who tempts men in their dreams, and if they're being tempted by her, she later on punishes them for those dreams, and in the dream she becomes a man, a warrior, and with a sword she's sending them into the afterlife. Now, the only problem with the story is that I don't understand why she had to turn into a man to carry a sword and be a warrior, but that's a whole different conversation. We are still in the Middle Ages. They describe her as a beautiful woman with red, long, flowy hair. And red hair was the symbol of a lot of characters that monotheism wasn't entirely sure what to do with them, such as Esau, the brother of Jacob. He had red hair, he was a rebel, he's a very complicated character. Also, this flowy, beautiful, wild hair becomes a symbol of women, which is very hard to tame them. There's a story among the Jews about women called Striga or Astriga. Maybe you know them from different cultures. They're some kind of vampires, and whenever they want to fly, they need to let their hair down, and when their hair is wild and free, they can fly. In Jewish communities, when the woman got married in the past, she used to cover her hair completely. They still do it in certain communities today. So in the past, they used to let the woman which is about to get married and her friends, her girlfriends, to run in the main street of the village or the town with their hair loose, and everyone would close themselves in their homes not to see it, and this would be her last wild night before she would get married and become this very righteous woman. And Lilith is becoming this symbol of women that are free and wild and sometimes dangerous. There's also writing that says that every time a man and woman are in bed, when they're intimate, Lilith is also there. It's very interesting because it literally says that there is no passion without the presence of Lilith. Although they end up offering a spell that will cast her away, but she's there anyway. Other than her red flowy hair, she has beautiful skin and red lips, and the bottom part of her body is fire. It's made out of fire. And she also has this very ancient jewelry. She of course becomes associated with the serpent, which is now the symbol of sin. And some say that the serpent in the Garden of Eden itself was Lilith or connected to her. So she actually meets Eve. And this is very interesting because sometimes you find stories of her, of Lilith, flying to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, where the Shekinah, the feminine presence of God in Jewish mysticism, dwells, and they meet each other, and they, so they say it, they sniff each other. What does it mean? I don't know. Also, you have, especially among the Jews of Babylon, you have these bowls that in the middle you see a picture of a demoness, usually Lilith, and she is chained, and you have writings around the characters of spells or sentences from the Bible, and people used to bury that underneath their houses to protect the houses from presence which is frightening. When modern era is taking over and people are stepping away from religions and folklore beliefs, Lilith is being taken into different writings, in theaters and in cultural events as this very beautiful, wild woman, almost a fairy queen. Almost a fairy queen, and sometimes she's being framed as a witch or the mother of witches. And the fact that she is very wild and not willing to take authority of any man, this what will allow her to become a symbol of the feminist movement. Even the suffragists at the end of the 19th century, more into the beginning of the 20th century, are looking for a symbol. The symbol of Lilith that has somehow managed to make it through monotheism is still there. She is the woman who demands equality. She is the women that are not willing to be second in command to anyone, and they embrace her almost as this figure who carries the torch of the feminist revolution into the 20th and the 21st century. Even New Age beliefs today, especially with neo-paganism, are taking her into some new pantheons, and now she's being framed as a dark goddess. I do have to say that dark goddess is something that we meet as a term more in New Age today, because in the ancient world the goddesses were complicated. They were not just darkness or light, they were many things. A lot of shades, a lot of colors. Even in astrology you can find reference to the Lilith moon, and if anyone of you know the astrology, feel free to write in explanations in the comment what exactly it means so we can all learn. There are very few feminine characters or figures that are as ancient as Lilith. And perhaps the fact that she was depicted as something which is sometimes frightening but also captivating is what allowed her to do this journey from probably more than 10,000 years ago into these days. Just go on Netflix or look at computer games. You will find her characters in so many fantasy TV series and books, and sometimes she's a witch and a vampire and a demoness, and everything which is complicated and captivating out there is being connected to Lilith, this ancient character. Now, the ancient Lilith is very, very long and very complicated. I hope I was able to give you some kind of a grand picture of many different parts of who she is or how we view her. So, if you walk in and maybe you're seeing an owl or red roses or even a black cat, nod to them and think of Lilith, the woman who believes the true power comes from within. Thank you so much for joining us, and I will see you next time.